Welcome to the Golden Feather. Grab a pint, a plate, and pick your seats. Your hosts, Virtek and Chibi Bree, are back from their latest adventures.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode with the Golden Feather. Today we have Pharazon on with us, covering the live stream, preparing the testing grounds. Of course, as always, I have my wonderful co-host, Virtek.
Hello everybody, how are you?
How are you doing today?
Oh, how am I? Oh, I'm great. Still kind of hyped up over the live stream and director's letter stuff that's come out in the past week or so.
Ooh, so much juicy details. What do you think, Pharazon?
Oh no, I'm super excited. It's pretty hard to be jaded with the information that they've given us this last week and a half or so.
I think they knew. They were just biding their time. They're like, ha. Just watch. We'll give them some semi not important stuff, and then at the last minute, bam, all the great juicy info. So we have quite a good episode for you today. So for those of us who are joining and don't remember, would you like to give us a brief introduction of who you are, Pharazon?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much Pharazon gaming almost everywhere. Twitter and YouTube, and then on Twitch. Although on Twitch it is Pharazon_gaming. But I am very much just a hobbyist content creator. Things have been kind of quiet because I've been learning a lot of video editing actually over the past month.
Nice.
Myself. This is definitely not what I do for a living, so it's definitely outside of my wheelhouse, the more creative stuff, but I am really enjoying it. And I love talking video games, so it's just kind of a way for me to do that. And I try to do it in a way that's that you talk about things or you work at things at a very high level, but you don't become an elitist in how you talk to people, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like my whole, I guess, shtick, if you will. I kind of sort of see it behind me on my big wall banner, but it's the idea of the friendly troll, right? The idea that you can work at a high level and still be friendly. You don't have to, put people down to be able to talk, games and stuff like that. It really should be a community. So
that's fair.
That's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Alrighty. So from what I understand, Virtek, you found something interesting on the forums.
Yeah, and it's one of those that you hear people talking about it, but you never really see many people that put their entire ideas out on paper actually in support of it, really. You see some people are like, yeah, I like it. And what it is, it's a post by one of the members on the official Ashes forums, Elia, I believe is how it's going to be pronounced.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and put the link up here in the chat. But the title of it is, Am I the Only One Who Really Likes the Idea of Apocalypse a Lot? And the main kind of topic sentence to pull from it is, has there ever been any game even remotely similar to this? A huge team-based and objective-based fantasy battle game. Which, talking specifically, if you read through the entire post, it's actually fairly long and it goes on. There's a decent conversation happening. But the main idea behind it is that there's stuff like Battlefront 2 where you can jump in, you pick a hero, you go and you do stuff, and then you pop back out and you jump in and do another thing somewhere else. But it's all blasters and sci-fi. And then there's things like your League of Legends where you can go in and do, the chessboard type, pick a player and then pick someone else to destroy the other player type of thing. And then there's all the other BRs out there, but none of them are just pure high fantasy. So it's a little bit of a different feel, and that I think has them jazzed up. Plus there's a few different modes, and they actually kind of want Intrepid to come up with a couple more modes for Apocalypse. Honestly, I think these three would be plenty enough, especially since it's really just a testing ground. But I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts on it?
So there are some other things that are similar, especially to the VR. You definitely have probably the biggest one right now is Conqueror's Blade. Trying to take on that idea of there obviously with that you have the large scales where you control the troops, and you're kind of the general of it. And it's obviously very popular. There's a lot of people playing that. There's a ton of people from the Ashes community, and a lot of the guilds that have moved over and started playing that kind of while they're waiting on new stuff from Ashes. So I definitely think that there is something there that people are wanting. People want to have large scale battles in a fantasy setting. And like you said, there's not really a lot in, especially in like the battle royale genre, where there's, like a lot of melee combat. There's a lot of, this high fantasy setting. And so I do think that there is room for things like that. But the thing that worries me is that if Intrepid gets it in their head early that there's a market for apocalypse game modes and kind of these drop in and drop out games, that it would hurt the MMO. Because as a testing ground, I think it makes a lot of sense. And if the MMO is successful and it keeps growing, then maybe you pick up all that work that you did and try to do something with it. But it's definitely something that could get into like something similar to scope creep, where you put a little bit too much time into it, you spend a little bit too much time refining, and you end up kind of alienating the people that put up the money to get Ashes the MMO proper. So I like the idea. I'm definitely on board with it, and I play the heck out of the battle royale mode, and we'll play Siege and Horde when they come. But it's I think it's a dangerous thing to do too much this early with it.
Yeah, fairly agreed on the here and now thing. I personally, I like the fact that they are doing it as a testing ground for different things. Like the main thing for the castle siege is they're going to be testing all the destruction stuff and perfecting all of that, which if it's going to be a main part of the game, things can break and you got to rebuild it. I think it's cool to have a mode to test it. Now, if they were to continue it specifically as that, like say when the MMO launches, and they do have these other modes that are kind of a little bit more roughshod, and like they're considered, these are the public testing realms, and these are where they're going to test certain mechanics and such. Like that would actually be a pretty cool aspect to it. Like just drop in, play a few things and whatever, and maybe down the road, maybe they could have like competitive things as a side attraction that isn't tied specifically to your character, but may help you unlock, say, embers for free cosmetics or something. And that's really all it does for you. It's a cosmetic game at that point, and you can unlock PvP centric cosmetics that are only available through playing those modes. And people would enjoy them. You drop in, you play around, and you leave, and it's no loss of anything besides you're entertained. You're tired of grinding that raid and getting teeth kicked in, or tired of grinding quests, you go out, take down a castle, and go back to playing your MMO.
I also think that it's a good thing for Ashes to have. I mean, again, I've said this previously, but having a testing ground that's not just like, okay, go forward, now go back, now hit this thing a million times, now do that while jumping. Like, we've heard stories, if you're in the gaming community, about testing and how it works, especially if you're close-knit with the people that do testing and stuff. But having the ability to actually play a game and not feel like you're necessarily testing is an important thing. I feel like for the people that aren't exactly interested in just strictly testing something, I feel like this makes it feel a little bit more seamless. And at the same time, as we saw, Intrepid is able to get the same information that they need while we're also enjoying getting whatever cosmetics and searching for that legendary sandal, which apparently is not called a sandal or a flip-flop or anything in the patch notes. So you can't look through the patch notes for anything like that.
And I do think you kind of touched on something there about the testing. There are some interesting things that they can do with APOC that is actually pretty unique in the gaming industry. Because if you think about, I guess with just the 900-pound elephant in the room, World of Warcraft, everything is a known quantity coming off of the public test realm. There's no boss that doesn't already have a basic guide coming out before it's ever even actually released. And APOC actually would give you a way, if they, let's say they continue it from this early testing phase and it always runs parallel to the game, they can actually take a boss and then pull all of the mechanics off of the boss, and then sprinkle those through like some of the legendary mobs in like horde mode, so they can figure out how to balance them. They could play around with it in that mode where you can't see all of the mechanics together. You don't understand how it's all going to come together in the actual MMO, but all the pieces of it exist throughout the different game modes. And there was a question on the live stream, I don't want to get ahead here, but like there was a question that was asked about how do you make sure that things coming off the public test realm don't ruin the experience of finding new things in the game.
Right.
One way they could do that.
Plus, I think it'd be really cool because you're getting a sneak peek, a glimpse at this new boss that's coming out without knowing everything about it. So you can be like, hey guys, today I was playing, or like this week I was playing on the public test realm, and we saw a hint, like I heard a dragon roaring in the distance. I think there might be a dragon boss coming, like being worked in its way or something like that. I think that would cause a little bit more excitement for things to come, while at the same time the point that you made was not having the mechanics spoiled before it actually goes live. And also there's no way to say that every server is going to see that. Perhaps we'll be testing it out on the public test realm, but only maybe one out of who knows how many servers, or possibly two, actually trigger the event, until other people trigger it much later down the road. But still, it's something that's really interesting, and it's very unique that Ashes is doing with making the world react to the player, and not the player react to the world. I like it. Although, speaking of players reacting to the world, they gave us a new animation for the backgrounds, I believe. And I thought it was, well, not just backgrounds, but for like in general, the in-game looks of buildings and areas. I thought it looked really nice. I forget, oh wait, that's not the right video. Oh well, there's this one too. This is a look at the castle siege mechanics that their engineer made. So it looks really cool. This looks really interesting to me too, because it reminds me of VR chat for some reason.
Yeah. Now, what cracks me up is, I'm just saying, catapult flight, it's confirmed. Confirmed.
There we go. And that's what it looks like fully fleshed out. It's kind of interesting.
This is actually, and what you can see actually in this clip right here, all of this art was available when the creative director's letter came out, by the way. I don't know why they didn't post a direct link to it. Like it was found, and a group of people saw all of these screen caps from the game. They looked amazing, just like this clip does. You know, all of this kind of really moody atmosphere, all of those things. They had that ready then. Like that would have been a really great thing for them to kind of just, even if it was just in Discord, or if they, you know, tweeted it out, whatever, like a link to it, just to kind of get people hyped up, like in preparation for seeing it in motion.
Yeah.
So I was a little curious why they didn't do that. I mean, I know the community found it, but it was kind of crazy because, like, out of everything that they showed, like, this is very impressive.
It is. It gets me really excited for castle sieges, and there's that super jump that they showed us recently. Although he missed the first time, but interesting to see what it looks like when you actually miss, because I'll probably be me most of the time. But it's a new, interesting, I think, alternative to catfall, I believe is what they're saying. I forget.
think so.
But yeah. Oh, there we go. The bot is alive. We've been slightly bot spammed.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a minute to get that up there.
Oh no, that's okay. Thank you so much. And then also they were talking about the character creation part of it. I wish, I'm really bad at names. Let me go look it up real quick, because I would like to make sure I give these people credit, because they work very, very hard on it. The intro that you saw during the countdown for our live stream is by the entire creative team, but this one was created by one of their lead art designers, I believe. And then the other one is by their engineer for the castle siege. So, but like, this is all looking really cool, really interesting. It's starting to come together. It's starting to look more presentable, in my opinion. And they did make sure to reiterate multiple times throughout the live stream, they are still definitely working on MMO stuff in the background, like while all this other stuff is happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's the big fires they had to put out, but while those were being put out, they were still working with other stuff. And I mean, that's the dandy thing is, and that's kind of what I was saying. Like once they really get the back end stuff, and we get to start really testing that and see if we can break it again.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't break again, then there's going to be plenty of stuff built up that's just gonna cause everything to just be a steady train pushing forward now.
Yeah, I actually I messaged Toast after the stream to kind of provide some feedback, because trying something a little bit different. Some of the things that, you know, whenever I give feedback, it's very easy if you give feedback and you're trying to be constructive and you say, okay, these things were all really great. Here's kind of my thought on something that maybe wasn't so great. I was trying to do that in a way that people didn't just latch onto it and then like the toxic part of the community, like really grab onto it and try to make it a big deal. So I just kind of messaged her and was like, hey, here's kind of what I thought about, you know, what happened today. And, you know, you don't have to respond or anything like that, but, you know, just trying to provide feedback in a way that's a little bit different maybe.
Yeah.
And she did actually comment back and mention specifically that going into the stream, they really did have a heavy focus on the MMO. Like, because I actually, the thing that I kind of was a little bit sad about is the things that they chose to show for APOC were not things that got me hyped for APOC. So it's like, you gave me a date, I got really excited. I was expecting to see a little something with some mustard on it for, you know, going into the APOC testing. And I got UI, and I'm like, not so much, you know. And I'm very happy with everything else that they showed. But she said that part of that came out of that they were so focused on trying to pick things that were related to the MMO, which I completely understand. I know everybody's really been harping pretty heavily on seeing things for that, and UI is obviously very much tied to that. I don't know, but I'm going to find Drake talking about the sandal in chat. I don't know where it's at right now. I'm going to destroy everything on the map, including you, Drake, to find the sandal.
I'll be right there with you, except I'll be the one skulking around trying to not engage anybody just so I can keep breaking everything and find whatever it is I need to find. Sandaria, was that it? Or Sandalia? Yeah, Sandalia. I come for thee.
So the video that you're seeing right now is by J.R. Vasovic, the senior game designer, and the Castle Siege mechanics you saw beforehand was by Alex Kudoli, I think is how you say his name, and he's the programmer that they have.
Alex was actually my favorite. And that I may be a bit biased, but when he kind of got off in the weeds talking about how they're building the back-end systems for the designer and kind of how they're thinking through problems and how they're building their code, like
you just got a blank stare and drool, didn't you?
I did, because I mean, like that's literally what I do for a living outside of games. Like I literally spend all day thinking about like how we're going to build a system so that anybody who works with it, I don't have to go back and reprogram that thing, all of that modularity. And that is really what will allow for them to iterate very quickly once they get it up. So this is, I definitely feel like this is a bell curve. Like it's going to be a long kind of slow uptake, but once they get that foundation laid, I really do expect it to quicken after that. There'll be very fast iterations. So that was very exciting for me.
Absolutely, especially looking at all the systems that they're putting together, which are basically they're doing a lot of coding to create stuff that's going to automate processes going forward.
Yeah, because he said that part where he was talking about like even just with the control points, like they're thinking through like what are all the variables that we need to make available to the designers, the people who aren't going to sit down and like write out 10,000 lines of code. And if they can make that so that it's just adjusting numbers and flipping and toggling switches, then that puts it all the way down in their hands, and they can iterate on that so much faster than having to go all the way back to then try to write all the code again. So yes, it will be, like I said, that really excited me. And to hear, one of their kind of main programmers kind of talking about all of the thought that they're putting into it, really should make sure that the designers really do have the tools to build, like what was it? He was talking about like the base, like there's a base class for the trebuchets, right? That they basically can have variations on the class for the trebuchet, and they don't have to go back and build each one of those individually. The designers can simply take that base class and make any version of that weapon they want, which is awesome.
Yeah,
Open folder, copy, paste, edit, save.
very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it for very quick designs in the future and very efficient designs in the current time in order to get up to speed to where they need to get. So I think hopefully we'll be able to confirm this for sure on the 20th during the first official rejoining of our testing phase. So August 20th, 11 a.m. PDT or PST, I don't know. But basically, we'll hope that the server situation was able to be fixed and that we'll be able to see much cleaner, crisper gameplay. We already saw some hints of that with the video. Actually, the live stream that they debuted the video behind us at the moment, they also showed us some other like weapon abilities and attacking abilities where it looked crisper, it looked better, but it took less CPU usage. And I think that's an important part with making such a big game, is making sure it's not going to kill people's computers right off the bat. Kind of like during our last phase when people were like, oh yeah, I logged in, but then I froze.
Yeah, right. Like someone was mentioning in the chat about how server crashed at one point during the last testing phase, and everyone is just kind of surfing around the ground on their griffins. They hit the ground, but then they're just kind of. But hi, by the way, to catch up on a little bit of the chat stuff. Hey there, Drake. How's it going? Harem King. Yes, we are live. And Lightword. Yes. Ashes will hopefully be the salvation for many people's gaming desires. ESO is definitely not getting better. We're kind of tootling around on Final Fantasy at the moment. Just kind of a time killer. I mean, we enjoy the game, don't get me wrong. It's not like, oh, we hate playing the game, but it's not quite exactly what we're looking for yet. So yeah, we're waiting. And
it's a close second for me.
yeah, exactly. It's a close second, so I don't mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the way Intrepid's putting out info is amazing. I love it.
It's very nice indeed. I actually enjoy the level that they're like. Their transparency is a good level, I think, now that they're getting better at it. It's just with the slow ramp up of getting back on track comes the slow ramp up of actual information releasing. But I'm hoping for a successful testing this round. Not that last round wasn't successful by any means, but it has been about, what, almost a year? So
let's see, was it
since their first one. Yeah.
Like 100 and hold on, it's always like 108 days, right? Like that's the current one from Danny. It's 108 days.
And while he was looking that up.
Day 108.
Okay.
But yeah, did you notice watching the video, the Keith Kovac, how he was talking about the armor and fitting on different character models? They're actually changing the style. Did you notice the picture of that? The image that they were showing, they're changing the style of the armor to fit each race as well. Like the one set of armor, the chest plate was it was on an elf, and it had really swooping designs and really neat little like tendrily type of really thin artworky lines. But then on the dwarf figure right next to it, it was really blocky, really like solid, angular, hard, very material design instead of fancy looking.
Oh man, I missed getting that clip, I think. Sorry. But you guys can definitely check it out in their live stream, which is still up on their Twitch, and I think pretty soon they're going to be up on YouTube sometime today. Wicker. It's gonna be the next test will be August 20th at 11 a.m. PDT. So within the next month.
Yeah, and as I say, to add to that too, I originally thought that they were saying that it was going to be a one-day test, but I tried to respond to somebody in questions about that and said that it was a standalone test. And actually Toast came back and said that they have not announced details on the length or the end for the upcoming limited test session. So
Okay.
it may not be a single day, which I think is what a lot of people were assuming, especially like I know I was, based on the way that they had been talking about it. So I don't know if they actually know how long they're going to run that. So
Yeah.
if it's working out, they may just kind of keep it going. So.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see our first official 24/7 BR. And yes, Wicker, there will be a link actually on the ashesofcreation.com website. And once they finish updating the bot and everything, you can definitely download that, and it's open, free to test, etc. All you need is an account. And you can get that off of ashesofcreation.com.
No, there is a caveat to that, though. They did just, as Pharazon was saying, it is a limited test, but that's about as far as we've gotten for information. It's limited. We don't know if it's going to be a 1 weekend, 2 weekends. We don't know exactly how limited. It might be limited in player base, like, first.
Thank you, Wicker. Have a good day. Sorry.
Etc. But note also that it's going to be a battle royale, which is a testing mode for testing the mechanics of the game rather than the actual MMO itself. They're holding lore really tight to the chest, so they're waiting to release the MMO for itself for testing until they've tested all the other mechanics and gotten all the back end stuff definitely stress tested out.
Yeah, and like Drake mentioned in chat that they said that they're going to be testing throughout August and September. We just don't know if it's going to be like they turn it on for a weekend, they shut it off during the week, they turn it back on the weekend. Like, we don't know what that's going to be. And I think that's going to be a wait and see, because I think that they learned the lesson from the last time is make sure that they know what's going to happen as it scales up. But based on the number of people that played in the BR the first go around, they'll definitely have to open it up somewhat if they want to push numbers on the servers to see if they can break them. So
yeah,
I don't know how far out that'll go and how quickly, but they'll definitely have to do it at some point.
Yeah, Drake, that's pretty much probably going to be it. It's going to be a burn down the server type of test. Like, turn it on for a short period of time, get as many people in there as possible, make sure they stress test the bejeebus out of their coding and hardware and everything that they've done as far as adjustments, and shut it off, adjust, challenge it again.
I'm excited though. By the way, Lightward, thank you so much. Welcome to the tavern. I hope you enjoy your stay. What you see up above us now is the concept art of, I believe, Elven housing and territories, made by Devin LaFontaine. I think I'm saying that properly. The senior artist at Intrepid. It looks really pretty. I was in actually the Nexus Guild looking at it because I spent all night trying to get our FC a house, and I managed to get it right when the live stream started. I already had it queued up and everything, but I was just like, I'm already up, I haven't slept yet. But basically we were talking and looking at it, and somebody mentioned, oh wow, if that's livable, I definitely want to be an elf and I want to live in one of those. It's very cool.
Yeah, I think
This is one of their favorite parts of the stream.
Yeah, they were talking about how difficult it would be to make the nodes with that type of architecture, just because would it make sense for all those trees to be there if it ends up being like near a beach, and the elves, the pariah specifically happen to be the main contributor to that. Is it going to make sense for a lot of trees to pop up? They didn't use the beach as a specific example, but that's something that popped up into my head. Yeah,
somebody else was mentioning what would happen if like that was supposed to be a human area.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're talking, desert, frozen north, even the underrealm, like if you're talking about like an area that is barren by default when you get there, and then it's barren everywhere around you except where your node is, it's going to be a little odd.
A little.
In a magical world, I mean, Steven did mention something that could end up building in some lore to support would be that they're actually ent trees that walk around with the elves. Kind of like something straight out of The Hobbit, like the trees just get up and move, and then they set roots down in, and that's where their housing is. I think probably the thing that I thought was the funniest about this part of the conversation, because these designs are unreal, but that tool that they showed off
a while back, the one that they want to use for all the modularity so that they can iterate on these things very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're listening to them kind of go back and forth, you realize he's sitting there going, I have no idea how we're going to put these into that tool, because he's talking about all of these asymmetrical designs, all of the curvature, and then you have the tree on top of that, which is an organic shape. And obviously, the more blocky something is, the easier it is to kind of make it modular. So, like, that's the type of problem that I think is really cool to challenge a team with and be like, this is what we want. Can you figure out how to kind of work that in with this tool so we can have these things? So I think that's going to be really interesting to see evolve, because that's a really neat technical problem.
Yeah, definitely. And Lightward says, and I agree with you, Lightward, by the way, most everything they make is fresh and new. And I think that's something that they're challenging themselves to do. I mean, there's only so much you can do with certain things. Like, a human's gonna look like a human. You can't really make it look much different. But the way you go about designing the world around them and the way that they interact with the world, I mean, honestly, I'm sorry, the thing that's rivaling my excitement for the Castle Siege is the character creation, because I would love to just play around with it and see how short I can make my character, because in real life I'm like very short, so I'd like to reflect that on my character. Sure, it may be normally like 5'5" or 5'11", but I'd like to make it 4'10", because that's actually how tall I am. So I thought it would be kind of fun.
Yeah, and these elven designs too, they're very much unique. Like, you don't feel like when you look at them that you've seen elven designs like this before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they definitely kind of feel elven. You know, they kind of vaguely remind you of that, but they definitely stick out in relation to kind of like what your standard fantasy trope is for them. And they did the same thing with, is it the Dwarven tribe, the other one that has like the kind of wood shanty type of,
the
kind of got
low,
bigger,
squat, wide
yeah
ones.
like that felt pretty unique as well. So yeah, like I'm very excited to kind of see like how this stuff actually plays out in the world, because it will, like, that's going to be one of those moments where you walk in and you're not necessarily going to have seen, you know, a metropolis level, you know, Pyre Elven node before. Maybe you came from a Dwarven one, or maybe you came from the Underrealm, and then as you're traveling across the map, and then that's something that you walk up on them for the first time, like that's going to be a pretty impactful view. Like, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And you know what? Looking at like these images pop up and hearing you talk, I just thought of maybe an interesting way they could go about getting these buildings, the Pariah buildings, to auto generate like that. And that's like, because I think typically you think of building a house like you're going to build the floor plan around something, and then you start building from the outside in, kind of like what's the inner structure going to be like, and then you build up and what's the next structure going to be like. And that's how you typically, when you just think of how am I going to build this house, that's how the brain just immediately goes to doing it. But what if, say, they went and created, say, 200, 300, 400 trees, or pairs or triples of trees, as that's going to be where it starts. The system picks this tree and plops it right there, and this tree has a certain ground space that it takes up, and then from that it says, okay, now I'm going to build out from the tree, like, and then there's a bunch of if and else statements, like, okay, is the wall going to go straight, is it going to go straight, is it going to go straight, or is it going to cut left? And then once it builds all that, then it puts a unique roof that's going to fit on top of that. So kind of like pick the tree, or trees for that matter, and if it's a pair of trees and it needs to build a building between them, then it has to connect somewhere in the middle.
That could be plausible, considering that right now they have each week as a different season, so literally 3 months could be 3 years.
That's, yeah, you know, that would work. I mean, and what's also interesting too is some of these designs where the tree kind of the building kind of exists in the middle of the tree, kind of whatever happens above that or below that doesn't really have to adhere to the building itself. So, you know, because the tree kind of disappears into the building, so you could do some really intricate things either below it or above it to help with the visual, even if you got a little bit of similarity kind of in some of the middle parts, that with the kind of cool stuff you could do above it and below it would be kind of nice too. Or like in some of these designs are popping out, they got pieces kind of jutting off at an angle even. You know, those pieces wouldn't have to necessarily, you don't have to worry about those as much structurally, which would help too.
Yeah,
they could probably do that.
I also like, I agree with Lightward on this one too, because I'm a very big scenery person. Half the time of the game, we'll just be looking at and exploring the areas, basically. Also in search of that sandal.
Yeah.
Telling you, Sandalia, I'm finding it. I'm finding it. Now, the tricky part is, like, when you find it, do you immediately take a screenshot or do you call the rest of your team? Because they could be a half a map away and you're going to get swallowed up by that red beam.
The red beam.
Yeah, the storm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the little red beam.
Circle.
I think they're more so meaning like the, oh, you mean like the sandal, huh?
Yeah, because looking for the sandal.
Yeah. I think Lightward was meaning the MMO stuff. Can't stream Ashes, gotta find the sandal, someone will stream snipe. Oh yeah.
Yep,
Hey.
for our first 24 hours, just no streaming anybody. Everybody's got to go find the sandal.
Then again, I mean, stream sniping, if you put a decent enough delay on it, you might be all right. But I mean, finding the sandal, streaming would be the absolute proof you need that you found the sandal first.
True.
That's true.
Look,
It's a
I found
blessing
it.
and a curse.
Here's the timestamp.
But then again, everybody else would be able to look at a map and then start eliminating where the sandal's not, little by little, watching your stream, watch you do all the effort.
True. That being said, though, somebody would have to be watching your stream and interested enough in, like, mapping out that stuff. If it's anything like Final Fantasy is, I'm sure there'll be a good number of us trying to stream Ashes at the same time. So, yeah. They would SS from your stream. The one and only thing that has me worried in the is the PvP model is almost like EVE Online. You will be killed by 24/7 and never accomplish anything. Just wish the entire world was not PvP. Too many trolls these days. Yeah, well, the cool thing about that is the I forgot what it's called. The mechanic.
The corruption system.
The corruption mechanic. So if you choose to not fight back, you would die and you would probably lose your stuff, but they would gain corruption because they attacked you if you're not in PvP stance. If they continue to do that enough times, they will definitely get corrupted and get reduced, like, negative buffs on their gear and stuff to the point that basically they're just slapping you. And if somebody pokes them, they just fall over.
Yeah, I mean, I think the PvP system has a good balance with everything. I mean, I know we've covered this a lot before, so I'll try and just be concise with it. But so there is the corruption system, and if you don't fight back, you're going to lose more experience and you're going to lose more stuff. But it's not like gear that you're losing if you're not corrupted. You're dropping like resources that you've gathered and stuff like that. They're going to have a chance to get part of that. It's actually a fairly big risk to take to get put on the map for bounty hunters to possibly find you just by walking around it. They're going to see your dot and know that you're corrupted and know that you're going to lose more experience and drop more stuff. If they've been killing people and had a chance to pick up some stuff, but then somebody who's corrupted has a much higher chance and or guarantee to drop more stuff, then it's basically a lot of risk for a little reward, and they'd have to almost make a business out of it, which would be tough to do because you're going to get slayed by bounty hunters over and over. Because you also get weaker.
Unless you're, trying to get a bounty hunter money. Let me just go get corrupted a bunch of times, let you slay me, and then collect the bounty. But, yeah, it just, it'll be interesting because, like, that's something I just really can't wait to test. Because, yes, I've been to, I think, Ul'dah area, not Ul'dah, I'm thinking of Final Fantasy, jeez. Okay, well, there's a place in World of Warcraft that is very well known for being only PvP area. You can't turn it off. It's during the Wrath of the Lich King, I believe, with the Death
Winter
Knight.
Grasp.
Thank you. That area. And you can't level at all or quest without somebody coming and just sniping you just because they're like max level and haha, look at the noob, but meh, I mean, I did try PvP this last week just because there was this specific cosmetic I really wanted in Final Fantasy. So I went in as dancer, and I actually had more fun. I think the thing that frustrated me with PvP in general is I love playing healer. And, well, healers are the first to die. So if you can't handle that, please don't PvP as a healer. AKA Bree, please don't PvP as a healer. But I had a lot more fun as a DPS because I was a lot less targeted.
And I think for Lightward, for the peace of mind, I think the one thing that beyond anything else, I mean, they have the idea of the corruption system, but it's the fact that, you know, they've paid very close attention to games like Eve, to games like Lineage, to all of these kind of previous iterations. They know how people try to game the systems, and they also know they're not going to get it right out of the gate. It's that they're building in a lot of hooks to be able to tune that. So if the punishment isn't strict enough, they can turn it up. If it's a little too strict, they'll turn it down, because they want people to feel like the world is dangerous. When you go out to gather, you shouldn't feel safe. There should be a risk when you leave town to go get those materials. And the further you venture out, the more fear you should feel, because that's what a frontier world would feel like. But they know that mechanically they need a way to support it. And so they've been very kind of adamant about like having all these different places that they can build in these little knobs and dials to be able to tweak it as they go. So I think that's about as kind of reassured as a person can get, is it that they're at least aware that they need that kind of tuning, and they need it kind of all throughout the game. So we'll see how it goes. But you know, I think it's a good start.
Absolutely. And a very connected point to get back to the discussion about the stream itself. Of a very connected point is that somebody asked a question saying, will there be any full loot systems that allow all currently equipped gear to be dropped? And they said no, that's not a thing they're going to do, because they want progression within the world to be meaningful, and they don't want progression and meaningful choices to lead towards the purposeful deletion of a character because you just lost all your stuff. So they're going to try to find a good balance of it. And I would say they're going to err on the side of not dropping too much, or not making it too rewarding to kill somebody in PvP in the open world.
Yeah.
And then dial it up until there's an acceptable feeling of risk, maybe.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you can get some materials off of somebody, like, you know, because I think it's pretty much anything that's a raw material is kind of what the things that you could pick up. So if somebody's been getting a bunch of ore, you could take the ore. But the thing is that you have to have the space to carry that, and you're not guaranteed to have that, because that's one of the other things that we saw in one of the nodes, I believe it was being able to expand your inventory and be able to carry more. And the amount that you're going to be able to take in terms of the monetary game is also going to be quite a bit lower, versus like trying to go and hit a caravan where there is a much higher carrying capacity there, and you and a couple of people would profit from that much more greatly than just targeting a bunch of randos. So I think that'll help balance it out too, where they kind of have these roving PvPs with the caravans as well.
Yeah, that'll tend to draw a lot more ire. So curious, Bree. It sounds like you're about to say something.
Go for it.
Okay, I was just going to ask, so out of all the questions that popped up, were there any that really, or even statements for that matter, were there any that really caught your attention?
There's two, actually. The first one is, I love storyline. I mean, Final Fantasy is very, very storyline intensive. If you've ever played Final Fantasy 14, it's the main focus of the game is the storyline, unless you're at current content. Meaning you have a little bit of MSQ that you do, and then the rest of the expansion is doing raids and dungeons and trying to get like higher level gear. But even so, they continue to patch in more MSQ things.
For those who aren't aware, MSQ means main story quest, because I played so many MMOs but never heard the term until Final Fantasy 14.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably because that's exactly what they call it, main story quest, for exactly what you're supposed to be following. There's a little bar at the top right of your screen that you always click if you get lost and you're like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like main story quest, click, takes you straight there. So it's really nice. But to get back on track, I think it's really interesting because somebody said, is there a planned ratio of race-specific quests versus universal quest? And there is saying that the core storyline stuff will have a much higher race-specific ratios, and that friends of other races can help, but would not be holding the quests themselves, even in group content. And so I think that's really interesting to me, because if I am a elf, a pirate elf, and you are a Vec, then we'd probably be seeing this main scenario content very differently, depending on the ruling race. But if we were in separate areas for whatever reason, like if you were in a Vec predominant area and I was in an elf predominant area, I'd be seeing it a little differently than, say, somebody on another server over who has a different predominant race for those areas.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Just the fact that there will be a variety of storylines to catch up. That's one of the big things that I enjoyed about playing Star Wars: The Old Republic, was that there were 8 completely different storylines, like completely different storylines from beginning to end. There were like a few common quests, and that's about it. But yeah, I definitely like the fact that there's going to be some that you either have to play alongside somebody from a different race or play all the different races in order to catch the full backstory of everything.
Yeah. Another thing that was interesting to me was also somebody asking about if everybody was going to have a sneak mechanic. Being able to
I think I've talked to that person in chat before, actually.
Oh, really?
I think so, because I think I had a conversation with somebody about that. It was eerily similar when that question came up.
Yeah, it was really interesting, because they're like, yeah, augmented by rogue as a secondary class, yes, but there will also be counter stealth abilities. So I think if I were going out gathering, I would definitely try to find a secondary class that would help me with what I want to achieve, but also making sure that I can see if somebody's trying to sneak up on me. Just because then I can run away and be like, nope, you can't get me today. Mwahaha.
Yeah, it'd be neat. But yeah, what is it? The ranger or hunter? I forget. What was it? The ranger? Is that how they termed it? Like the base class, with the bow and the arrow. I think it was ranger.
Yeah, I think it's ranger.
Yeah, I think that's the one that's going to have the tracking capabilities and the anti-stealth, which, man, I really hope they let us change secondary classes. Either, like, maybe not on the fly, like, instantly, but at least be able to alter between them so I can serve different purposes with the same main core class.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, if you get an opportunity to have a very, very long conversation with Okies, who is, I think, currently replaced Tank with Druid over in AOC. I had probably like a 4-hour conversation with him and Gundle the other night about the class system, and I definitely won't go into that for this because that's a lot. But there's a lot of really interesting things around that that I would highly recommend if you get an opportunity to talk to him. I think he's a PI, so he's had an opportunity to have some additional conversations, and there's some things that. Some conversations that he's been able to have and some feedback that he's gotten that I think kind of help bring some of that into focus. And I think if you get an opportunity to talk to him, there's some interesting stuff in there. Or if we have an opportunity outside of this, I'll talk to you guys about it. But yeah,
definitely.
Rail from this because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with classes. I can't wait to. Oh, which actually mentioned in the stream that night. They actually mentioned they've got some blog posts that may be coming up. So. We'll see how that ties in with what I was talking with Okies and Gundle about.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be cool to have a couple of us on one of these episodes and just literally just chat and do like pure, what's it called? When you're just theory crafting. Just pure theory crafting.
Yeah, not really cover new info, not really covering a live stream, just talking about things.
Because there are so many kind of pieces that all kind of relate, and we're starting to see some of it. I mean, like with the quest that you were talking about, some of that came up because when you have classes, and you're going to have things that are meant to be done solo. Well, I mean, when Chibi, you play a healer a lot, which I do as well, and you're not obviously as effective at doing DPS and going out and soloing. Like, you're never going to die, but it's going to take you forever to do things. So when we start learning more about the classes, and we're hearing these things about how they're going to do these quests, like in streams like today, it's going to be interesting to see how they address solo content for like tanks and healers who, aren't really geared to go out and just, DPS down a mob super quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the kind of conversations that we ended up like way off in the weeds about, but
Nice.
it's nice kind of getting these little tidbits about like, okay, yes, so they are doing some solo content. That's cool. They've got this information about classes coming up. So like, it'll be really nice to see how it kind of all starts to come together and start to connect.
Yeah, and another thing on that is, for those of you who don't know, in Ashes of Creation, they're planning on making the cleric a little bit more frontline friendly. So we'll have more of those damage skills than most other clerics have had previously in the games. So I know, but
sorry, that's all personal preference there, but I just want to heal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they should definitely have the options depending on the class kits and the way that you set it up. But I think
oh yeah, for sure.
I think maybe that would be very, very suitable for things like a lot more like D&D cleric. They're very in love very closely with D&D stuff. So in fact, they had a D&D campaign or Pathfinder campaign that Steven made about Ashes of Creation, and dang it, if I had all the money in the world, I would be the highest level so I can get a sneak peek at that lore book.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was getting back to was the whole, I think they were trying to change up healer class from a lot of the typical MMOs, but there should definitely be a option for that. And I feel like that among the new races that are coming out, that they're trying to make, such as Tolnar, I think is going to be very interesting, and I can't wait to like actually test out all this stuff and see like what the damage is like. I heard cleric was OP in 0, but would love to see what it's actually like when they're finished fleshing it out. But real quick, speaking on races, there was a fan art Friday, which is just, I need to commend this person because it is.
The purples.
This is wow. I like it. It's very good quality. I love the character design. I'm like, how is this person not working for Ashes right now?
Yeah, seriously. But yeah, they did a really, really high res cover on that.
And that was Lona's art on Twitter?
Yeah, it was Lona, and on Twitter it was Lona's art. LONASART.
I'm gonna go ahead and put that into the group chat.
Yeah, there's actually a real deep texture on the skin and in the feathers or the fur on the collar and everything. Like, it's really, really high res. I like it. It took a lot of work.
You know what? Speaking of that freaking dragon, man.
Oh.
Like that. Like the I'm glad. Like, I know that they kind of seemed like they were surprised it was like so much of it being shown, but like watching like all of the work that went into it, like from like rotating the teeth, and I mean just everything was so crazy. And I'm a big like more traditional dragon fan, like 4 legs on the ground, big wings, kind of skinny looking. So like that's like right in my wheelhouse. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I didn't clip that part either, but you guys can definitely check out Ashes of Creation right here on Twitch. They had their live stream just a few hours ago. Oh, I'm choppy. Okay.
But yeah, while she's getting cleared up there, so Pharazon, what were there any things that stood out of particular notice for you, as far as the questions or statements, either way?
I don't know so much. I guess there was one question, and I don't really want to pick one that's negative, but it's one that sticks out in my mind. But it was, they asked a question around what was it? Being able to see people's gear, right? And I definitely don't disagree with what they said about it. Like that people have a tendency to kind of use it to be exclusionary. They if you don't have X requirements, then you can't be in here. But I think one of the things that kind of worries me just a little bit about what they say, and I think that works for like 95% of the game. But as somebody who really likes to do high-end PvE raiding, I want there to be really difficult content. And I kind of feel like the attitude felt very much like, we want you to bring the player, not the stats.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't work in high-end raiding. And that was kind of the only thing. Like, I understand the sentiment, and I like the fact that they were acknowledging that you're going to kind of go out in Discord and you're going to kind of do that anyway. But it felt a little bit dismissive of that hardcore group a bit. And they have said they want to have very difficult raids in the game, that these things that like only a very small percentage of players will be able to complete, which I think is awesome. But to do that, you kind of have to bring the stats, not the player, in a lot of cases. I mean, well, actually you have to bring both, because you have to bring the person who has like a flawless execution plus really good gear.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that as we continue down, they will have like a blog post or something specifically on the really hard rating. But, you know, like, I at least like the fact that whenever they talked about it,
Yes.
it was in a real way.
Sorry. What Lightword is saying, I resonate with exactly.
Yeah, and see, I see exactly what you're saying, and I see what they're saying, and here's my point of view on it. Like, and I think I've ranted about this so many times. Like, if you build a game purposely not including any kind of metrics gathering tool for the players to use, what you're going to do is twofold. For one, you're going to make it harder on the hardcore player to really find out what they're doing and really push the edge.
Mm-hmm.
For two, you're going to make it harder on the casual player, because now they're going to have to jump through extra hoops if they want to run with anybody who goes competitively, because now they can't just say, hey, can you do a certain amount of DPS? No? Okay, well then what you're going to do is this thing in the group, and everybody else will take care of the main damage. You interrupt every single thing you see, because your interrupts work, but your damage is low.
Yeah.
But either way, in either case, if somebody wants to be a jerk, they're going to be a jerk, because the extra hoops they can do is, hey, you want to be a damage in our raid? Walk over there and we're going to start a timer. We're going to tell you go. Let's see how long it takes you to kill this thing. Ready, set, go. Timer.
Yeah, this reminds me of our conversation on DPS meters also, and how a lot of people feel like they should be optional, not required, not disallowed, but optional. And yes, like, sure, there can be some, like, jerkiness around DPS meters also, but at the end of the day, as Pharazon was pointing out, it's a great tool for hardcore players. I mean, even Final Fantasy is like, in order to be a part of this like raid, you need a minimum of this gear item level, which it's not negative to me at all. I look at it and I'm like, oh, okay, so I need a little bit better gear because that's obviously harder. Like, there's a recommendation for gear level for a reason. And I think it's when people pay so much attention to the gear level that it's crazy, because maybe you have some really good gear, but some of the gear that you don't have that's maybe lower item level might be things that don't really contribute to your overall stats as much. Like, for example, it might give you a different stat, but because it's lower item level, it brings down the rest of your your overall item level score. So I think it's like very tricky to balance, but it's definitely something very useful, because if somebody goes to say, hey, I tended to survive longer, I have about this item level, that kind of helps other people around them be like, oh, I need a slightly higher item level to defeat this random world boss that appeared, because that person was able to last the longest out of everybody.
Yeah. And one of the things...
Sorry to interrupt there, just to throw this out there. I don't want to interrupt conversation, but I personally do have to leave for work, like, very quick. So I'll mute my mic and duck away. But the last thought I really wanted to get out was that the one thing nobody thinks about when they think about DPS meters is running through, on purpose, as many low-geared people as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And you're using DPS meters and heal meters and mitigation meters to find out how many weak links you can take, assuming they all die, or stand in bad stuff, or don't meet the DPS check to kill the boss.
Mm-hmm.
You can accurately figure out how many people you can carry to bring their gear level up to be able to raid the big stuff with everybody.
Right.
Yeah, if you need 100,000 DPS total, and you've got 10 DPS that are all pulling 10k, doesn't matter if you have any extra DPS beyond that. Those 10 people, as long as they survive, as long as they're good, can carry the rest. And that's very true. And you can't stop DPS meters either, which that's the big thing. Because Final Fantasy, I think, it's very clear that a company that big, if they wanted to attempt to stop them, that they would have the resources to do so. And because they can't, because ACT exists, that it reads out of memory, you're not going to stop it. So the best thing you can do is say, look, just don't be typing in game, and being an a-hole to everybody.
Yeah.
But we understand you're going to use the tool. We're going to have these things.
Right.
We're going to give you tools to kind of help make sure that there's a base level of capability. But yeah, we're not going to have so much that you're able to be completely bad about it. And like Virtek was saying, like the people who are going to be bad about it are going to be bad about it regardless.
They'll come up with some other way to be a jerk.
Exactly.
Literally just saying, hey, you want a tank, right? Stand in front of that thing and let's see how well you can survive with minimal heals.
Yep. Go find this big elite mob. We know it's going to kill you. Show me how long you can survive against it.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
So they're going to find something. So
right. I think this will be a great time to actually go ahead and end. We have been live for over an hour. Thank you so much, Pharazon, for joining us.
Anytime.
And we're always excited to continue the conversation either in our Discord or in the YouTube channel when I finally figure out how to fix my stuff, because it was automatically uploading. So now I have to figure out how to refix it to go back to automatically uploading so Virtek can easily edit. No problem, Greypelt. Thank you so much for stopping by. Lightword, thank you for stopping by. Wicket, thank you so much Wicker, sorry. Thank you so much for the cheer and hanging out. I also wanted to say before we leave that Theory Forge is currently live, so if you want more ashes, head on over there. They have some really interesting theory crafting that they're doing. So yeah, and we'll be live in another couple weeks, I believe. More information will be out on Twitter and on Discord, because we're going based off of content at the moment, the news that is coming out, and well, the interesting level of interestingness that we can cover.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you everybody for stopping by. Thank you all for your time. Again, as Bree said, thank you Pharazon for joining us.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. See you next time.
Adios.